Right. Yes, so welcome to Learning Partner. This is the second episode of ReactJS tutorial. So in the first episode, we have seen like what kind of web applications are there, different architectures are there, and we have discussed like React is a single page application, right? And we have created a basic project, right? And we have tried to run that also. So this is the existing that project only we have following from the episode one. Now, in this episode, we are going to focus on how we can create components. And in components, we have two types of functional and the class-based component. But for now, we are going to discuss about functional component, right? And what component is and how do we create the component, right? So as we say, React is a single page application, right? So means only one HTML file is going to be there. That is this index.html. And inside this index.html, we have seen one div is there, right? So in this div, all our application is going to be rendered, right? Now, the question is, if only one page is going to be there, so how can we achieve multiple, or how we separate our code, right? Let's say we are talking about a school application, how we can maintain, how we can create a form for student, how we can create a form for school, how we can create a form for student attendance. So many different forms will be there, right, in a project. So if it is a single page application, we cannot uh, keep all our code into a single page only, right? So to achieve this, we have just consider like you are creating a multiple page based application, and same thing you need to achieve in HTML, in React application. So you have to create a multiple components. So for now, just consider component as equal to your pages, equal to your HTML page. Just for now, just we are in the initial phase. So consider one component is nothing but an HTML page, right? Just as a page we used to create when we normally know, or when we have learned HTML or CSS. So how do we create a page? And so if someone asks you to just to create a page in a React.js, so you will be creating a component, right? So now to create components are two types of component. First is a functional and second is a class based. So first is functional, second is class based, right? So we are going to discuss functional component in this episode. Before starting, one extension we have to download and install. So you just have to go here. In the extension, then you have to search for React code snippets. Okay. So React code snippets is there. You just have to install it. Currently in my application, it is already installed. So that's why I'm getting disable uninstall button. If you don't have it, you will find install button. So just click on it. That extension will be automatically installed in your VS Code, right? So this extension will help you to generate automatic code rather than writing whole code by yourself. It will generate some basic code for you. Now, so in SRC folder, as we have discussed in the last episode, in SRC folder, we have our whole React application, right? In that, our app.js is there, right? So this is kind of a parent component. For now, you can consider like this is a parent component. Then in index.js, we have selected that particular element, that is root from index.html, and this code we don't touch, right? Now, coming back to app.js. So if we see the application, running application, you can see in the first episode, we have created a hello React p1 tag. So that was coming. Now let me remove this anchor tag and this image also. I am saving it. So now in your page, only hello React will be there. This logo and learn React will be it won't be visible because we have just removed it. Why it is taking so much time? Yeah. So you can see only hello React is visible. Okay. Now we have to create multiple components. So in SRC folder, I'm going to create one folder first, just to separate out the files. Okay. I'm just create, it is not mandatory, but just to separate out the files, or group the file into particular folder. I'm creating one folder. I'm saying components, right? Now, in this component, I have to create one, let's say let me just show you what we are trying to achieve it over here. So I have just Googled W3 school, and in HTML, I am going with this layout section. So this is the UI we are trying to design. Let's say this is a header part or banner. This is navbar, left sidebar. This is the actual content, and this is the footer. So we are going to divide this. We will be trying to design the same page, but with different component. Means we will create a separate component for this header. For left sidebar, we will create separate component. For this, we will create separate. And for footer also, we will create a separate component, right? So for that, in component, first we have to create a simple .js file. So right click on that component and click on new file. First thing we are going to create is header component. So header.js, simple JS file we are going to create. Enter, right? Now this is an empty JS. Now in this JS, I have to create a functional component. So we have that extension already installed. So now to create the functional component, we have to write RSC. Okay. So let's see, if I type RSC, it is suggesting something. So you can say React state. If I select that, you can see the basic functional component is ready over here. So this is the advantage of that extension. You don't have to write this whole code. You just have to type that small 3 letters and it will create the whole functional component for you, right? Now, let's go back to here and let's see what CSS we need for this. So let me just copy paste first CSS. So these are the CSS I'm going to need. Let me just copy this. Now, in React, we have index.css. This is kind of a global CSS. So I'm just removing whatever I have. Okay, and I pasted it. Now, this was a header tag. I'm just adding dot. Then for nav also I'm adding dot so that it will become class. Then we have dot nag. This is for article. This is for section and the footer. Just tag CSS were there. Just I have converted that with classes. Or you can do the same also. No. So first thing what I have done is just copy pasted all the CSS from there and put it over here. Now coming back to header.js. This is a header component, right? So now in header, you can see just city was there. This background color and city. So this was the header component. So let me copy paste. Now header was there, but instead of header, let's remove this header tag and simply put a h2 over here. And we have one class that is head that I will give it. This class I will give it to my parent div. So now in React, if you have to add a class, so you just have to use class name and like this. So we have created our header component, right? Now, I told you like, so app.js is our kind of a parent page. So in this parent page, we have to load our header page. Okay. Now, so let me just remove everything what I have. Now here I have to load that header.js. So if you see, I have just typed header. So you can see component/header, the import is coming. So if I click now here, you can see import is also automatically added because we are trying to get the data from here, particular header file, right? So means we are importing this JS into app.js. So we need the import statement because from header.js, we are exporting. So whenever we are exporting from this file, so we can import it anywhere. So likewise, don't think in detail. Just now consider like this is kind of a functional component. And if we have to use this component in another component, like in app, we are trying to use header component into app component. So obviously we need to import something. So this is the import statement for that, right? And we are just using that header component class name as a HTML tag. Let me just save it and let's check how does it look. Yeah, so it is compiled properly. Let's go to our application. Now you can see the same what we have seen here, it is coming. Now instead of cities, let's name it as welcome to Angular, welcome to React app. Let's save it, right? It is visible. Now, next part is the left side section. So left side section is nothing but this. But before that, we need a section, right? So section will go into our parent component. So after header, we need section. We are just trying to match the UI they have provided, right? Now we need a left sidebar, right? So this is the sidebar what we are talking about. Now here, we are again going to create one more component. So right click, new file, left side bar dot js. So empty JS is created. Again, I have to create a functional component. So what I'm going to do is RSC and just select that. So it will create a basic component for you. Now in this div, what we need, just the nav. So I'm just copying this and pasting it over here. Let me just format it. Now in index.css, I think we just have to remove this dot nav because that is the nav bar we have. Right. So now our left sidebar component is there, right? Let's say, let keep the name as it is. Now our left sidebar section component or page is ready. Now we just have to show that in the section. So again, we can write left sidebar. You can see it is suggesting user. If you just clicked it, you can see import is automatically added and it is also coming. So then we just have to close it. Now let's file and save all. So you can see we have got the left sidebar. So same UI, what we are seeing here, same type of UI we are building. Now next thing is the main body, right? So whatever the content we have over here, this section we have to design. So again, let's create one component. So let's name it as a body. .html, sorry, .js, enter. Again, we have to create the component. So RSC, just select it, right? Now, whatever the code we have for the body, let's copy that. Okay, so it is article. So let's copy and paste it inside the article. Let's again format it. Now let's again see the CSS article. Yeah, again, we have added the dot. We don't need the dot. That's it, right? So now our body component is also there. Again, in the app component, right? So after sidebar, we need to add our body component. So you can see it is suggesting. I just have to click it. It will come over here. That's it. So let's click on save it. So you can see we have got the body also. Then one thing is left, that is footer, right? So this was the footer. So footer will be actually after the section, right? So you can see this is the footer. So for footer also, we can create one more component. So in again component folder, right click, new file, footer.js. Again, we are going to create a component. So RSC, and here we are going to have the footer code. So let's copy and paste it. Let's format it. Let's see what CSS we have done. Okay, we have made it as a class. So Instead of directly using this footer tag, we can remove that and we can add that class or on this div, right? So let's save. Now our footer component is ready. Now we just have to show this footer component after this section. If you see the HTML from W3 school, after the section, we have the footer. So we just have to load that component over there. After section, footer, right? So let's close it. File and save all. So see, the same structure, what we have seen in W3, we have achieved that, but with multiple components, right? So this is how we manage. This is a single page application, but this is a separate, this for this header, we have separate code. For this left bar, we have separate code. For this body, we have separate. And for footer also, we have something separate code. So all your code will be in a separate files, right? So this is just a sample example of a single page application, but with multiple components, right? So our code will be separate, not in a single component, not in a single file or anywhere. Now, so this is about how we create a multiple components and how do we render that. Next part is, let's say, in the header.js, this was hard coded. The welcome to React App, this was hard coded. Hard coded means this value is static, right? It is not going to change anytime because it is static. But what I have to do is I just have to create a variable and I have to store this value into that variable, and then I have to use that value. I just have to access that variable value and then print that variable value in this h2, right? So for that, what we have to do, we just have to create a variable. So let's do that. So if you have understood the JavaScript, how we used to create variables in JavaScript, just like that, we have to create the variable. Just little bit changes there. In this header arrow function only, we have to create the variable, right? So before return, we don't write anything after return, right? So we have to create all the function and the variable before return, right? So here I'm just going to create a variable with name welcome message is equal to double quotes semicolon, and this text I will be storing into this variable. This is just like the simple variable declaration in JavaScript. Now this variable I have to print it in this h2, so I just have to use curly braces, and inside that I can use my variable. Now if we have to achieve the same thing using JavaScript, what we have to do, I have to give id my h1, then document.getElementById. We have to pass this id.html, then we have to pass the variable. But with React, we don't have to do and write that much code. Simply we can access that variable, and wherever we have to print it or display it, you can directly use that by using curly braces, and you can pass the variable. So let's try to save and check it if it is displaying the yes. So you can see we are still getting that same text, but this text is coming from the variable, right? Let's try to create one more variable, constant date is equal to date time. Sorry, new date, right? And let's try to print new date into a paragraph. Whatever the date and everything we get in this variable, current date. Let's try to print whatever the value we get into p tag. Save on. What it is saying, objects are not valid as React child. Okay, so it is considering it as an object. Let me just convert it to string. New date dot to date string. Right? So you can see we have got the date, Wednesday, September 06, 2023. Right? Because earlier it was containing the date, and just to print the date, we have to do something else. Right? But we have converted that to string. So now it is visible. So this is how you, let's say you want to display some value from the variable into any tag. You just have to create that variable and display that variable by using curly braces. It is as simple as that. Right. So next thing is like, this is kind of a rendering, right? What we have did is dynamic value rendering. Now I have to try like condition based route rendering. Let's say, consider we have a variable like is active, and if value is true, we have to display like student is present, and if value is false, we have to display like student is not present, something value based on the condition. We have to render something else. So let's try that. So let's try to create a variable. Let's say const is student present. This is a variable, and let's store false value into it. Boolean value we have stored. So we have created one variable that is student present. Now our task is like, if student is present, we have to show, let me just create h3. Student is present in class. Okay. And h3 student absent. So you can see we have two h3. First h3 is saying like student is present in the class, and second h3 is saying like student is absent. So this is either of both. Either of these two, at least one should be visible. And that this is kind of conditional, means condition based rendering. Means if this variable value is true, then we have to show this h3, otherwise this h3. Means if it is true, we have to show this. If it is false, we have to show this h3. So this is conditional based rendering. So how can we do that? So first we have to write curly braces, then this variable, right? Then and. So this is just a syntax, just like an if else condition. Like if this is variable true and, so if this variable is true, then we will be showing this h3. Right? This is kind of a if condition, just like we used to write in a JavaScript. If this variable is true, then this h3, this particular block will run. Now, if this variable is false, means not of this variable, not, if we add not, means this is false. Again, and this variable, the h3. So see, this is condition based rendering. If this variable is true, you can consider both of these like an expressions, like two conditions. If this variable is true, and if we have got the contents, means if we say these are two conditions, this is true and h3 is already there, na? So this will be like it has something value. So true and true will be true. So this particular line will execute. But if this value is false and true is false only. So this won't run. Now, in case of false, this is false and means not false means true. And this value is there. So true and true, this will be false. So if it is not clear, just see the output, then you will understand. So current variable value is having false. So this will execute because we have added not over here, right? This will become true and this is value is there. So let's check. So you can see student is absent is printed. Now, if I change this value to true, see student is present in class is getting printed. So this is conditional based rendering. Based on the variable of the, based on the value of this variable, either we are rendering this h3 or this h3. Right? So this is everything what I wanted to cover in this particular episode. So just to summarize, like we have seen how we can create components, how we render those components into our app component, that is parent component like this, right? And then how we can display values from the variable in the HTML, right? So we just have to create a variable and display that variable in any HTML tag by using curly braces. And inside that curly braces, we just have to use that variable. Then next part is conditional based rendering. Means if this variable value is true, we have to display this h3 tag. If this variable is false, we have to display this flag. So like this, we have achieved that, right? So that's it with this current video. Please do like and subscribe. In 1 or 2 days, I will be coming back with new episode again with the new topic. So this is just a tutorial. So all the episode will be linked to one another. If you haven't seen the first episode, just go through. URL is mentioned in the video description. You will understand the first episode, setup and the project creation. Then you can watch this episode. That's it. Thank you guys.